Hey everyone, Mr. Schachter here with the last form of solving a quadratic, and that is the quadratic formula. So once upon a time, mathematicians said that completing the square just takes a little bit too much time, so there has to be an easier way. So what they decided to do was to complete the square on a standard quadratic, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So if we follow the complete the square steps, the first step would be to divide all sides by a, divide by a. So this is going to cancel. This is going to equal x squared plus b over ax plus c over a is equal to 0. And the next step would be to move over your constant term. So this would yield x squared plus b over ax. We'll leave a little bit of a gap. Is equal to, negative c over a. Now the hard part. So what we need to do is we need to take b, which is currently in this location, and we need to take half of it. So half of this would be if we multiplied it by 1/2. And that would give us an answer of b times 1 is b, and then a times 2 is 2a. Okay? But you have to square that. You have to square that result. And that's going to equal, you square the numerator, b times b is b squared. And the denominator you have to square. So to square the 2, that's 4. You square the a squared, that's just a squared. So this is your magic number. It's b squared over 4a squared. That is the value you add to both sides. B squared over 4a squared plus b squared over 4a squared. Okay, so let's get this out of here. Now we have to move on to factoring the left side. So let's get back to the blue here. Let's factor the left side. All right, so factor the left side. And then the right side is going to equal the sum of these. And in order to add these together, I should probably get a common denominator between a and 4a squared. And that common denominator is going to be 4a squared. So let's keep the second term the same and get a common denominator of 4a squared. So it looks like I would need to multiply. To get to 4a squared, I would need to multiply by 4a, the top and the bottom. Okay, multiply the top and the bottom by 4a. And so then if you do negative c times 4a, that's just negative 4ac, if I put them in alphabetical order, divided by, and then a times 4a is just 4a squared, which is what we wanted. So now I can actually add those together, and I'll do that in the next step. But over here I need to factor. We know it's going to be x and x. We know it's going to be plus and plus. The question is, what's the factor? Well, if you haven't picked up on it by now, when you complete the square, the number that always goes in this slot right here is, first of all, always the same, but second of all, is always the b value divided by 2 or times by 1/2. It's always half of whatever b was. Half of b is b over 2a. Okay, so that's what's going to go in those slots. So it's going to be b over 2a, b over 2a. Okay, now we're talking. We can write this as x plus b over 2a quantity squared. And on the right side over here, since they have the same denominators, you can add the numerators together. So we're going to do negative 4ac plus b squared over 4a squared. Okay? All right. Now, in order to get this thing, in order to get x alone, you need to take the square root of both sides. So this is going to get ugly, but we're almost finished. If you take the square root of x plus b over 2a quantity squared, the square root and the square cancel, leaving you with x plus b over 2a equals, the square root on the right side here, we're going to need to add the plus minus. And nothing in this radical is going to simplify, but I am going to take the b squared and place it in the front using the commutative property, so I can just swap the order. And then 4a squared on the bottom. All right, and last but certainly not least, if I just hide that, extend this page a little bit. Last but not least, you need to solve for x. You would need to minus b over 2a minus b over 2a. So we're going to get that x is equal to, this goes away, so it's going to be plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared minus b over 2a. Now I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. So the first thing that I'm going to clean up is the square root of 4a squared. I can actually simplify that because they're both perfect squares. So what I can do is call this plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by, I'm going to take the square root of the denominator. Well, what's the square root of 4? 2. What's the square root of a to the second? That's just a, minus b over 2a. But you're going to notice that the denominators are the same, which means you can add the numerators together. So let's extend a little bit more. So we're going to get x equals, if I add the numerators together, b squared minus 4ac minus b all over 2a. And then to get the formula that you all know and love, you just swap the negative b to the front of the square root. B squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So this is how mathematicians derived the quadratic formula. This is how we found it. So that's it. It's a great formula. Let's go to the next video to see how to use it.